Magandang araw pong muli sa inyong lahat, dear viewers. I'm your host, Dino. Welcome back sa aking channel, Dino Carbide DIY Motovlog. And today, we'll talk about proper engine braking when driving downhill. Watch till the end for our bonus feature. If you're new to my channel, thank you very much for clicking the video. Please hit like, subscribe, and the notification button to keep you updated when I upload new videos. Today we are here in Baguio City and we are on our way back home to Pangasinan. We decided to take the Marcos Highway route as it is more scenic, although the travel will be longer. Plus, we want to show you something that, as far as my driving experiences is concerned, I have not seen in other mountain roads. My wife and I have been wanting to post something like this because every time we drive down from Baguio, we cringe at the sight of vehicles in front of us when descending because we see their brake lights on in almost the entire descent stage of the travel. And then, at the same time, we smell the awful burnt stench of the brake pads coming from their vehicles. That means they're not shifting to the appropriate gear and apply crucial engine braking. Such driving practice is very dangerous as it can burn up your brakes, causing them to not function properly, or worse, lose your brakes entirely. Shifting to low gear to apply engine braking helps ease up the load on the brakes. In my years of driving and conversing with other drivers, like strangers, friends, relatives, and acquaintances, sometimes talks of proper engine braking comes up, and some of them cringe at the idea of shifting to low gear so the engine may help in slowing down a vehicle's descent. They fear that it could over-rev the engines and damage its internal components. It's funny they do not worry for the brakes burning and losing its function. Some also fear that engine braking may also cause clutch slippage and burn the clutch pads in the process. Well, if the clutch was able to carry the vehicle uphill without any slippage and burning stench, then it can just as equally carry the vehicle downhill. The vehicle is just as heavy uphill as it is downhill. You use the clutch more during uphill than you would during downhill because this time you have the assistance of the brakes, while during uphill, the clutch is on its own, pulling the vehicle up. The amount of force the clutch has to deal with during ascent should be the same during descent. If your clutch assembly is in good condition, clutch slippage is close to impossible, unless you're a very annoying clutch rider. So right now we are looking for the billboard sign that says shift to low gear. And there it is. This is what I wanted to show you as I previously mentioned. And we're taking some pictures of it. When descending from Baguio to the lowlands, as you pass through the town of Tuba Benguet along the Marcos Highway, you will see this sign that says shift to low gear. In driving along other mountain regions, I have not seen this sign, except only here in Tuba Benguet. Well, I hope I'm wrong because this message is a very crucial reminder to all who are driving downhill. So to help ease your worries for the engine when descending down the slopes, a driver must remember these rules during descent. A. Promptly shifting to low gear. During descent, do not wait for the vehicle to take up speed before you decide to shift. This will cause the engine to rev very high by the time you decide to shift. In case it is quite late before you decide, do not release the clutch pedal abruptly. Gradually release the pedal and balance the slowing down of the vehicle between the brakes and the gradual engagement of the clutch. You will hear the engine slowly rev up or see the needle of the RPM dial turning towards the red zone. Also, even though you are able to shift to low gear earlier, you still should not release the clutch abruptly. Always make it a practice to slowly release the clutch until it completely engages. B. The RPM or the sound. At engine brake, watch the RPM dial intermittently to make sure you stay focused on the road. As long as the needle does not reach the red zone, your engine is safe to perform the engine braking. For vehicles with no RPM display, just listen to the sound of the engine. You should be able to tell if the engine is already complaining and telling you it can't take the stopping load any longer. This way you can decide when to apply brakes and when to release it. Letter C. The red zone, the sound. Whenever you see the needle nearing the red zone or the sound of the engine revving too high, apply the brakes gently. Remember, near red zone equals apply brakes. No red zone equals release brakes. High RPM sound equals apply brakes. Low RPM sound equals release brakes. This method helps balance the stopping load between the engine and the brakes. Now, why must we not constantly apply the brakes during the entire engine brake process? Because we are trying to keep the brakes as cool as they can get. The cooler the brakes, the better they function, and the longer they can keep you safe. Yes, they will still give off that stench of burnt smell, but not as bad as when you just use your brakes entirely during descent. When you are descending too fast, never ever attempt to skip a gear when shifting down just so you can get to the appropriate gear and slow down the vehicle. This will cause the gears to grind and may possibly damage or chip off gear teeth. It can also cause the entire clutch and gear assembly to work harder and possibly cause some damage, especially if the vehicle is fully loaded. Always shift down to the neighboring low gear first. Release the clutch, again gradually. Depress it again, then shift down to the gear you need. All these steps while your other foot is applying the brakes with care. And letter D, the right gear. Always engage the appropriate gear for the demands of the angle of the slope and the weight of the vehicle. And yes, fourth and fifth gear can also engine brake if the slope is not steep and the load is light. While second and third gear may be good for one driver, they may be too slow for another. So, the appropriate gear still depends on the speed preference of the driver and his ability to drive downhill and his vehicle's capabilities. However, I strongly do not recommend driving fast through downhills, no matter how good you are or how capable your vehicle is. None of that can save you from accidents for being too confident and reckless. It is usually not advisable to shift to first gear when the vehicle is moving. It is almost always too difficult to do that. It can damage your gears. But some slopes do need the first gear. When you are in that situation, slow down much more until the first gear can be engaged. Better yet, stop completely, then engage the first gear. I'm not very much into automatic, but this I know. Some automatic vehicles have an auto shift to low gear during descent. Others can be switched to manual mode and the driver can choose which gear to engage. However, I'm not sure if older automatic vehicles have those features. If not, don't use them at all. Get another vehicle. You'll only burn your brakes. And to our dearly beloved manual motorcycles, just because you think your bike is lighter doesn't mean you don't need to apply engine brakes and just confidently rely on your dedicated brakes. Well, I'm a bike lover first before I'm a cage lover. Cage stands for vehicles with 4 wheels and up. Let me tell you now, bikes need engine brakes just as cages do. You have to understand that brake capacity is equal to vehicle weight. Not practicing engine brake to driving a motorcycle is the same as not applying it to a 10-ton truck. To the CVT bikes or scooter users, yes, you can also engine brake. When the bike slows down, the clutch arms automatically disengage, rendering the engine unable to connect to the wheels. This also happens during descent when you go slower using your brakes. The clutch arms disengage and your bike is now freewheeling downhill, which forces you to use your brakes dangerously, especially on slippery pavement. What you must do is just rev up your engine. This causes the clutch arms to swing out due to rapid revolution, the effect of centrifugal force and angular momentum, and engage the clutch drums again. Once the revolution of the clutch arms is enough to stay engaged, your bike will engine brake all the way until you slow down again and the clutch disengages again. Once again, just rev up the engine so the arms swing out to connect to the drum. In my conversation with other people on social media years ago about engine braking on downhill, some of them philosophize that they've been driving downhill with just using their brakes for years and they never had an accident. Well, if it works for you, fine, but do not encourage others to do the same thing. Safer is better. Just because it never happened to you doesn't mean it will never happen later, and it will never happen to others. Trust me, it did happen and they do happen. It's just a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. By then, too late to be sorry. And now for our bonus feature, driving up a very steep ascent. Cars like mine, a 31-year-old Toyota Corolla 1.6 GLI, has a goodly amount of power climbing uphill at the right condition. Some steep climbs were still a breeze, but at a very steep uphill ascents, it's another story. The video here is not giving justice to how steep this road is. In this particular situation, I found out in a somewhat humiliating and humbling way that I should be more aware of the power-to-weight ratio of the vehicle when dealing with very steep climbs. Considering I have been driving for 33 years now, mastering many climbing techniques, of which I easily took on very steep uphill climbs with no problem at all. But in this particular condition, I did not anticipate the greater torque and power the climb required to overcome this road. I casually moved forward in first gear with just 2000 RPM, rendering the engine not having enough crucial torque to conquer the climb, and I forgot the AC was on, adding to the struggle of the engine. Actually, when I tried playing with the clutch so that the engine can rev up to higher RPM, it was able to spin the wheels, indicating that it does have the power to climb. The problem is that the car is front-wheel drive. On this very steep climb, the majority of the weight of the car lies on the rear wheels, especially that we had extra load in the trunk, rendering the front wheels with not enough weight for traction. The wheels can spin, but it can't grip. Therefore, the car will not move. As you can see here, I slowly backed up, or backed down to be more appropriate. Once I reached a level area, I made sure the engine was revving at 3000 RPM and up, which is a torquey and more powerful premise of the engine, and the car was able to conquer the steep climb. Well, the engine still struggled because I still have forgotten that the AC was on. Next time, I know better. So, dear viewers, thank you very much for watching, and I hope this helped. Bye!